So where do we start? You know, where do we begin to even understand such a vast concept? Mind is not a simple thing. It's the whole existence in one sense. When you look at a tree, when you look at the green of the tree, something triggers in your being. When you look at a bird flying the sky, something changes in you because everything is connected. Everything is a part of your mind. Reality is not divided. It only appears to be divided because we have divided it using language. We have separated the tree from the forest by calling it a tree. Otherwise, that tree is always a part of the forest. No tree is isolated, and it cannot even exist in isolation. We are all connected, and while we were connected, we were blissfully unaware of our individuality, and we were happy. And that's the reason we don't see any animal complaining. We don't see a bird sitting on the tree and complaining, what a day this is. Because there is no individuality, there is no separateness. Because it knows it's a part of the existence. It's a part of the reality. Since we have that sense of individuality, since we are separate, questioning, reasoning, learning, everything comes in. Until we realize that unity that connects us to everything else, we will always be in pain. There will always be some disturbance. And meditation is a simple way of trying to experience a moment of connectedness to everything. So we can start with this simple inquiry. Okay, what is this mind? Or what is this body? Who am I? Simple question. Every day for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, or 1 hour. Just be with the question, and there are different methods of meditating. I mean, I can talk about the different techniques. But really, meditation, the foundation of meditation is always silence, stillness, and solitude. If you can bring these three things together, then you have created the right conditions for being meditative. But even before that, we'll have to understand, okay, how will it be helpful? Does it work? Or will I simply be wasting my time? So maybe what we can do is we can just, you can ask a few questions. Try and see if you can give a real solid justification for why you need to meditate. Because if your mind rejects it, then you would not be able to practice it. Somewhere you will have to convince your mind that, oh, this works. I want to try this. So, if there is a question, if your mind says, oh no, meditation is not going to work for me, you can ask that question, we'll try and discuss it.
How would you relate, the three things you just said are also the three conditions of praying effectively. Silence, stillness, solitude.
Yeah.
You don't pray when you're talking to other people. You want to be alone.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So, if you're good at praying, or you feel comfortable praying, is that a good sign for getting into meditation, or do you consider them two completely different aspects?
Okay. See, this is where we'll understand that meditation is not a separate activity. If you look at it culturally, religiously, meditation has always been a part of our society. In fact, a non-meditative society is a myth. It doesn't exist. A culture that is aware of this inner reality. Okay, let me take a simple example of the teachings of Jesus. Everything he spoke about, we might disagree here, but the way I look at his life, I'm working on a book, about his life and teaching. So it's like last 3-4 months, my whole life has been, studying his teachings. Now, one thing I was able to understand is he is talking about an unlearning process, which is what I call in my book, emptying the cup. And he says the path to that is you. And this is what he means when he says You have to become like children to be able to enter the kingdom. He's just using that language which was prevalent during his time. But really, what he's trying to say is, we've gone too far away from our original nature. We have accumulated too many thoughts, too many desires. We have become too knowledgeable, and that is not helping us to see our own inner reality with clarity. And he himself comes from a spiritual discipline. Nazareth is not a place. He was a Nazarene. Nazarene comes from the word Nazarene itself comes from Judaism, which comes from Nazara, which means to see. Literally, his spiritual discipline was the ability to see. And this tradition has been there. I mean, he was a part of it, which, again, the Nazarene and all these different groups comes from the Gnostics. That's the umbrella spiritual group from where a small sect called Nazarenes comes from. By the way, the word Gnostics itself is the root word for the word knowledge. Gnosis, Gnostics, which comes from the root word gna, Gna, which is a Sanskrit word which means gnana or knowledge. See, it's all connected. If you look at the flow of spirituality and how this knowledge of meditation has passed from one place to another, and how individuals have acquired this skill. I mean, Jesus was a part of it, Buddha was a part of it. So many hundreds of awakened people, enlightened people have been a part of it. I've been a part of that stream. We all have been a part of that stream. It's just that some of us have pursued it to try and understand what it is. Some of us have been cut off by certain ideologies, certain mindset. Okay, maybe for me, I should not go too deep into it. Probably I should just simply believe and stay away from it, or whatever it might be. So what he talks about is, there is something within you. This is his fundamental teachings. It has always been the same. There is something within you that is worth seeking. And he says, if you seek, you will find it. If you knock, and the door will open. It's all simple understanding that this seeking is the process that we need to learn. This searching is the process. Now, we have searched on the outside a lot for answers. But he says there is a way to search within. And meditation is what he's actually talking about. In fact, he himself, even after his, he began teaching and all that, every day he was in meditation for about 3 to 4 hours. I mean, all these things are not a part of the Bible, because Bible talks about the 4 Gospels, that's about it. There are hundreds of other Gospels that were not included into the Bible. For example, the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, which contains his original teachings, was never a part of the Bible because it was rejected in the Council of Nicaea, telling it's too mystical. And we don't want people to go in that direction, because that requires practice. You need guidance. And that is not a language that you can just simply spread as a mass concept. That requires a smaller group practicing and learning. So this is where, the religion and spirituality get separated. So when we look at Jesus as a spiritual man, religious people get offended. It's like, no, he's none of those things. He's simply God, and we're praying to him, and that's about it. But I look at Jesus in a purely practical sense, in a way that he has something to teach. And that was his message, and his teaching is there in every word he's spoken. I mean, that is unmistakably him. Without those teachings, we would have not even recognized him. If you actually think about it, I mean, there were 2,000 people crucified any single day in Rome during his time. Always. So he was one other individual who was crucified among those thousands of people. We would have not even known who he is. It's his teachings, it's the message, it's the words that he has used to try and communicate, our inner reality. That's where he separates himself from everybody else because he had found that within him and he was sharing it. And it's the same with Buddha. He's talking about meditation, he's talking about mindfulness. The language is so remarkably similar. Although for all probabilities they had never met each other, two completely different, although maybe there's about 500 years difference between both their births, they would have never known each other's teachings. And yet it is so remarkably similar. Love, compassion, goodness. Where does it all come from? Unless he has found it within him. Because he was in a time when there was no idea of love. It was just pure competition, strength. In fact, ideas of love and compassion were considered as, it's lunatic. You have to be mad to talk about love, when you're in a time of war. This was a time when everything was chaotic and display of power, display of dominance was respected. Unlike today, sometimes we look at, or most of the time we look at display of power as arrogance. This was 2,000 years ago. So the more powerful you were, more aggressive you were, more respected you were. And here he was talking about love and compassion, but where did he find it is the question. He could not have found it in Jerusalem or anywhere outside because people didn't even know such a thing existed. That's why his teachings were so revolutionary. When he spoke, it was as if he had dropped from a totally different reality, totally different dimension of existence, because he was talking about something people had no conception about. I mean, to love your neighbor, to love somebody. Why? So this is where, once we start exploring meditation, we will realize that we have been introduced to that ancient stream that has been flowing through every civilization. Unfortunately, in the West, meditation has been completely marginalized for various reasons. Religion has become more dominant here in the West. And somehow religion has left out meditation. I mean, reasons are many. We don't have to go into that. But if you look at India, if you look at Asian countries, where I come from, meditation is very much a part of our spirituality, our religion, our way of life. Everybody knows that, there is such a thing, that if you can practice it, if you can spend some time with it, you will understand so much more about yourself. You will get the answers to all your questions. Everybody knows it. Not everybody practices it because it takes time and effort and all that. But everybody knows it. But here, it's a little different. Meditation is almost like an external concept. We tend to think that meditation is Buddhist. It's not Buddhist. It's universal. Meditation is older than Buddha, it's older than Jesus, older than Hinduism, it's older than everything. Because that is the stream of knowledge that has separated us from animals, that has separated us and given a totally new identity, put us on a completely different trajectory. I mean, all the creativity and everything that we can recognize as human has come about in the last 4,000, 5,000 years. Before that, we were simply a part of the existence like any other animal. So this stream of knowledge, according to me, is what changed everything. This understanding of oneself, that an individual is not a simple collection of bones and muscles and blood. He is something more. He is consciousness itself. He possesses something within him. If he can find that, all his pain, fear, worries, and frustrations can leave them all far behind. So, seeking this answer within ourselves is meditation. And that's why it's difficult. Because you have to believe that it exists within you. You have to believe that the solution is there within you.